The categories of knowledge. At-Tahawi said, لِأَنَّ الْعِلْمَ عِلْمَانِ, because there are two types of knowledge. عِلْمٌ فِي الْخَلْقِ مَوْجُودٌ, knowledge that is accessible to the creation. Very literal means that's present. Knowledge that is present in the creation. That's accessible to the creation, achievable. وَعِلْمٌ فِي الْخَلْقِ مَفْقُودٌ, and knowledge that is inaccessible to the creation, unachievable, or absent, or missing from the creation. فَإِنْكَارُ الْعِلْمِ الْمَوْجُودِ كُفْرٌ, denying the accessible knowledge is blasphemy. وَادِّعَاءُ الْعِلْمِ الْمَفْقُودِ كُفْرٌ, and claiming the inaccessible knowledge is blasphemy. ولا يثبت الإيمان إلا بقبول العلم الموجود وترك طلب العلم المفقود. Belief is not confirmed until one accepts that there is accessible knowledge and does not seek the inaccessible knowledge. The explanation is that there is knowledge that Allah made possible for the slaves to achieve. He created necessary knowledge or essential knowledge, daruri, which is not dependent on contemplation or inference. Meaning you don't have to think to acquire this knowledge. It doesn't require thinking. It's granted. It's automatic. Such as being aware of one's own existence. Do you need evidence that you exist for yourself? No. Or for one to know that he is hungry. When that feeling occurs to you, you know that you're hungry and you don't need to say, this feeling that I feel, what is the evidence for it? And realizing the existence of humans and animals, meaning other things around you, that's known automatically. And their outward actions, they're moving around and doing things by way of observation. You see that. You see the squirrels climbing the trees and everything, the cat run under the car, etc., the birds and everything, the ants, the people, the cars. So the knowledge that you have by your mere observation, that's necessary knowledge or essential knowledge. It's automatic and granted. You don't need to ponder or think about that for that to be confirmed for you. This means that the ilm, the knowledge, and the ma'rifah, the acquaintance or familiarity, whether mere unadulterated conception or what is beyond that, is confirmed. Mere unadulterated conception, like if I say to you door, or if I say to you horse, then you conceive something. And I didn't describe that door or that horse for you. So whatever you conceived, at the minimum, was some mere unadulterated conception. When I say door, that doesn't mean open door or closed door or metal door or wooden door, etc. Or if I say horse, that doesn't mean spotted or male or female, etc. This is still confirmed without me giving you any description or details. This mere unadulterated conception, that's confirmed. We as Muslims, we agree that this is something. Or what is beyond that? If I say open door or closed door, or red apple or green apple, this is confirmed, for it is something that we experience. Conception, tasawwur, is a type of knowledge which is realizing the matter at hand, the mahiyah, the thing itself, without confirming or denying anything about it. That's this mere unadulterated conception that I'm telling you about. Without confirming or denying anything about it. It is certainly confirmed with definitiveness or definiteness. All factions have agreed upon this but the sophists. When we say all factions, that means even outside of Islam. The sophists aren't Muslims. The sophists were the only ones who disagreed with what we are saying here. Those are the people who believe that nothing is real. That's where the idea for the Matrix comes from. Matrix is a movie inspired by Sophism. And that's why the movie itself is loaded with philosophy, and much of it is just mumbo jumbo. Allah also created acquired knowledge, iktisabi, in his slaves. That is achieved by applying one's contemplation and mental abilities. An example of that is the realization that the world is an event. When one realizes that the world is an event, how would he realize that? Not automatically, but by thinking. He first of all realizes that he exists and the things around him exist. And then he thinks about that. And he realizes that he did not exist without a beginning. One himself would realize that he, on a personal level, didn't exist without a beginning. And the things around him, when he thinks, he would say, these didn't exist without a beginning. This light, this stairway, this table, they were not existing without a beginning. And then goes further, this tree and this building and this neighborhood, these were not existing without a beginning. And then he thinks, and he will eventually come to the conclusion that the world itself, the world in totality, has a beginning. That's acquired knowledge because you went through a process for that. It's not automatic. The knowledge of the creed and the knowledge of the religious rules are beneficial. Those are fields. Those are disciplines. We're using the word knowledge here. What we're just talking about is something that occurs in us. We were calling it knowledge, whether it's automatic or whether it's acquired. And now we're talking about some fields or disciplines, which are collection of information and rules. And we're calling that knowledge. The knowledge of the creed and the knowledge of the religious rules, those are beneficial fields, beneficial disciplines, as well as the knowledge needed for livelihood, like knowing how to count and read and knowing or having skills. You might be a carpenter or an electrician or the like. And acquiring that information is praiseworthy. This is the knowledge that exists in the creations, and denying it is blasphemy. That general denial is blasphemy. Such as the sophists' denial of the existence of the world. Here, don't go far and don't be confused. Whenever it comes to cases of blasphemy, just stay where it's clear. Whatever's not clear when you're dealing with blasphemy, whatever's not clear, throw it away. What is clearly blasphemy here is like denying the existence of the world. Meaning, denying that things are real. That's blasphemy. Those sophists, their creed is that everything is mere imagination, which is self-contradictory, because imagination, is it real or not? Which will also come. Furthermore, for the slaves, there are some forbidden types of knowledge. Among them is philosophy, magic, and astrology. As for philosophy, that's a craft. Philosophy is a type of craft. It's a mental craft. And it is a way of thinking outside of the box. The basis of philosophy is that the mind is the ultimate authority. And your general practice of philosophy is to confirm what cannot be realized, and to deny what can be realized. That's broad. So that's why it is philosophy that would argue, for example, that your house is always moving. Your wall is always moving. Although you can't see that, you can't detect that in any way, but they will argue for you, some of them would argue that no, everything is always moving. Even what appears to be still is moving. And it's philosophy that would motivate a person to argue for the earth moving and for the sun being still. And magic is a forbidden craft. Some people call it dark arts. That is some wicked actions and wicked expressions by which Allah creates a result. Wicked actions and wicked sayings by which Allah creates a result. Like someone would do magic on someone and make him sick, or make him lose his mind, or make him fall in love or fall out of love. And astrology, which is fortune telling in all of its different forms, whether it's reading the stars, that's the astrology, or reading palms, or reading cards, or reading dice, or what's like dice, whether one throws bones or throws seeds, or looking into a cup of coffee, or looking into a crystal ball, or any of these things. All of that is forbidden. Muslim narrated that Zayd ibn Arqam, may Allah accept his deeds, said, I do not say to you all except what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to say. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa' wa du'a'in la yusma' wa nafsin la tashba' wa qalbin la yakhsha'. O Allah, certainly I seek refuge with you from knowledge that does not benefit, a supplication unheard, meaning unaccepted, an insatiable self, that means a self that's never satisfied, and a heart that does not fear. So the point of mentioning this dua is that first part. Min ilmi la yanfa'. I seek refuge with you from knowledge that does not benefit. The ghaib, the unseen. There is also knowledge specific for Allah, reserved for Him. And claiming to have that knowledge is blasphemy. When we say no one knows the unseen but Allah, that's a broad statement. Broad statements, general statements, are valid. Saying no one knows the unseen but Allah does not mean that no one knows anything that's unseen but Allah. Because for sure, prophets know some of the unseen, whatever was revealed to them. And angels, they know some of the unseen, whatever was revealed to them. And saints might know some of the unseen without them being impeccably correct about it. They could be mistaken. Examples are like claiming to know everything. Now that's for sure blasphemy. Only Allah knows everything. Or claiming for someone else that he knows everything. Or like claiming to know when Judgment Day will occur. That's reserved for Allah. Claiming that is blasphemy. Even trying to know when Judgment Day occurs is blasphemy. Attempting to decipher that. Like some people who used the letters in the beginnings of some surahs of the Quran to try to calculate when Judgment Day would occur. That's blasphemy. Allah said, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. They do not encompass any of what is known to him except that which he willed. Any of what is known to him. Min ilmihi, that means ma'lumihi. Ilm, knowledge, here means ma'lum, known. Allah's knowledge is eternal. Thus, the meaning of them encompassing some of his knowledge is knowing some of what he knows. I.e., what is known to him, and they certainly do not know but very little. As for the saying of Allah, قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. O Muhammad, say, no one in heavens and earth knows the ghaib entirely. None knows that except Allah. It means no one knows all of the unseen but Allah. Included under that charge of blasphemy is an Egyptian man named Rashad Khalifa, who applied some so-called number 19 formula to all the verses of the Quran, claiming that it is part of the miracle of the Quran, meaning that this man, at least in his claim, he found a pattern in the Quran. He would count somehow 19 and he would find something recurring. I don't know exactly what's his claim here. So he kept doing that, applying this pattern and finding something. So then he did it again and he didn't find what he expected to find, so he claimed that there was a mistake in the Quran. Our Sheikh says, according to what we have been informed, this man is from the Baha'i sect based in America. This man claimed to have knowledge of the occurrence of Judgment Day. How could that be when even Jibreel came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "O Muhammad, inform us about the hour"? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Mal mas'ulu anha bi'a'lama min as-sa'il." The one asked about it does not know better than the asker. Yani Jibreel is the asker. He said, inform us about the hour. And Muhammad is the asked one. So he said, the one who's asked, he doesn't know better about it than the one who's asking. This means you and I are equal in that lack of knowledge, O Gabriel. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdih. The causes of knowledge. An-Nasafi said, wa asbabul ilmi lil khalqi thalatha, al hawasu salima, wal khabaru sadiq, wal aql. The causes of knowledge for the creations are three: the sound senses, truthful information, and the mind. This means that these are the three ways through which one can achieve definite knowledge. Ilmun qat'i or ilmun yaqini. Definitive knowledge or certain knowledge. Those three ways go back to two, because truthful information is heard and hearing is a sense. Allah said in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Allah took you out of the bellies of your mothers while you do not know anything. Yani, He brought you from the bellies of your mothers not knowing anything. And He made hearing, sight, and hearts for you so that you would appreciate. Hearing and sight, those are senses. And the heart, that's the place of the mind, which we're going to say. This means that Allah created the newborn baby as one without knowledge. His amount of knowledge is zero. And created for him the tools by which he would acquire knowledge, senses, and a heart. The heart, which is the location of the mind, according to the Strong saying. Here's a footnote. There are opinions on the mind's location. Some said the brain. Among them are the philosophers, among those who said the brain is the location of the mind, are the philosophers, doctors, and Imam Ahmed, according to a narration from him, and Abu al-Mu'in al-Nasafi, and Sadr al-Islam, who ascribes this position to Ahlul Sunnah in general. He says that's what Ahlul Sunnah says, in the general body of the people of the Sunnah say, according to him, that the mind is in the brain. He said, it is a subtle body, illuminating in the head, according to Ahlul Sunnah in general. Its effect falls on the heart, so that the heart realizes by the light of the mind, just as the eye realizes by the light of the sun or lantern. If the light weakens, the realization gets weak, and if the light goes out, the realization goes away. Their proof, meaning their argument, is that a man would be hit on his head and lose his mind. Had the mind not been there, they argue, it would not have gone away because of that. He wouldn't have lost his mind due to a blow to the head had his mind not been in his head. Just as if he were hit on his hand or foot, he would not lose his mind by that. It would not have gone away because of that, just as if he were hit on his hand or foot, he would not lose his mind by that. That's what they said. Based on this argument, this position has been sometimes ascribed to Abu Hanifa and sometimes to Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani, for they said in the chapter of blood money that there is blood money due if one were hit upon the head and thus lost his mind. So that's not explicit though from Abu Hanifa that he's saying the mind is in the head. That's someone inferring from Abu Hanifa's words that that's what he believes. Others like Judge Abu Zayd As-Sarakhsi and Imam Ahmed, according to another narration, said that the mind is in that cone-shaped organ placed in the left side of the chest called the heart. Their evidence includes the saying of Allah Ta'ala, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا أَوْ آذَانٌ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. Did they not travel through the land so that they would have hearts by which they have minds? So that they would have قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا, hearts by which they think. أَوْ آذَانٌ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا, or ears by which they hear. The brain has a relation with the mind, according to this saying. According to saying that the location of the mind is the heart, then the brain is related to the mind, not the location of it. For this reason, a person may take a blow to the head and lose his mind. And what we learned is that this is the strong saying because this is what appears from the Quran. And in the ayah, Allah says, آذَانٌ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا, ears by which they hear. So then when he said also, قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا, hearts by which they think, by which they have aql, by which they have minds, then just like the ear was the place, the site of hearing, then also the heart was the site for thinking. And they gave an example about the brain having a relation to the mind without being in it. And that's why you could take a blow to the head and lose the mind. They said it's like how if a man lost his testicles, then his facial hair wouldn't grow. That's because there's a link between those. And it's not because his testicles are in his face. Allah created each sense for realizing something specific. The norm is that whatever is realized by any one of those senses is not realized by another sense. Whatever is detected by any one of those senses is not detected by another sense. That's the norm. However, it is not mentally impossible that one sense would detect something other than for what it was created, other than that for which it was created. This is because each of these senses is a means for realizing those things, And they do not have an actual effect in reality, meaning they don't create. So, it is mentally possible that one sense could detect that for which another sense was created. It's just not normal. This is because none of those senses actually creates anything. So that's repetition then. The fact is that the realization takes place by the creating of Allah. According to this, we explain the Prophet ﷺ seeing Allah with his heart. Although the heart is not created for sight normally. The senses. Hearing. It is the power embedded in the nerves in the bottom of the ear canal, through which sounds are realized by the way of airwaves adapted to the manner of the sound. So that means that there would be a body, and then there would be two bodies, and then if they come together, they make a sound. The air around that sound adapts to the sound, and then that air moves. Those airwaves will reach your ear, and then Allah will create in you realizing a sound. Sight. It is the power deposited in the hollow nerves that meet at the brain and separate ending at the eyes, through which colors, shapes, and other things, the realization of which is created by Allah upon using this ability, take place. So sight then, it is a power that Allah creates in us. We use our eyes to achieve that vision. And the circuit for this realization is light. In the previous example, the previous case of hearing, the circuit was air. For the hearing, the circuit is the air. For the sight, the circuit is the light. And then Allah would create in you the realization of colors, shapes, and other things like motion. Smell. It is the power embedded in the two protrusions at the front of the brain that resemble the nipples of the breast, through which scents are realized by way of air adapted to the manner of the odor. The air reaches the nostrils, and Allah creates the realization of the smell after that. So also here, the circuit for that is air. Taste. The power spread throughout the nerves on the tongue, through which flavors of those things that have flavors are realized. Upon being mixed with salivary fluid in the mouth and contacting the nerves, Allah creates the realization. So according to that, the circuit is the saliva. Feel or touch. It is the power spread throughout all of the body through which heat, coldness, moisture, dryness, and the like are realized. Upon connection and touching, Allah creates the realization. So then that one requires contact. Then Ar-Ra'ini said, he's the explainer of Al-Waraqat by Imam al-Haramain. That's the source of this particular information here about the senses. His explanation of Al-Waraqat by Imam al-Haramain. He said these 5 senses are obvious and their existence is confirmed. As for the extrasensory perception confirmed by the philosophers, it is not confirmed for Ahlus Sunnah because their references do not comply with the Islamic fundamentals, meaning they don't have any evidence for a 6th sense. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdih. Speculation or supposition. Speculation is to deem 2 matters possible, while one of them is more apparent than the other, more seeming to be true than the other. According to the speculator, meaning it's relative. What you might suppose to be true, someone else might not suppose to be true. So you are deeming 2 matters possible and supposing that one of them is more likely. That's relative. Another person would be also weighing the same 2 matters and his supposition is opposite of yours. The information conveyed by one person does not necessitate knowledge. Rather, if it fulfills the conditions, it necessitates application. That means if we got information through one person and it fulfills the conditions of acceptability, then we're not going to say this is 100% for sure true. We're going to say we think it's true and we're going to work according to it. Hence, if the chains of the hadiths narrated about purification, prayer, fasting, hajj, zakah, and the like were sahih, authentic, it would be obligatory to apply them. As for whether the Prophet said them or not, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is not definite knowledge. Because even the most truthful person could lie, possibly, as unlikely as it might be. Or he could be mistaken. He could have a delusion. Or he could have a slip of the tongue. Doubt, the slightest uncertainty about the belief in Allah or His Messenger, is blasphemy. The slightest. That means if you are 99.1,000,009% sure that Islam is the right religion, and there was still just that one little small percentage that it's not for you, so you're not 100% sure, then you're a blasphemer. This is not what is meant when Al-Ra'ini said, mixed with the text of Al-Waraqat, he said, doubt is to deem 2 matters possible without one being more evident than the other. Doubt is to deem 2 matters possible without one being more evident than the other. That's the words of Al-Waraqat. He wants to explain that according to the doubter. So also that's relative. So you might be doubting about something. So it means, according to this definition here, doubt is 50-50. So what might be 50-50 for you might be 90-10 for someone else. So you would be the doubter. And so the equal uncertainty about the confirmation or negation of Zayd's standing is doubt. This is in fiqh, not belief. That's in rules, not belief. If one of the 2 possibilities became more probable, then that's the speculation or the supposition. And the fancy is the unlikely possibility. Yani, the delusion or imagination. Ignorance, simple ignorance, is the mere lack of knowledge of something, such as our lack of knowledge of what is under the 7 earths, or what is in the depth of the seas. We don't know. You don't know what's in my pocket, for example, or you don't know what's in my container, in my chest. So that's simple ignorance. It means the mere lack of knowledge. Or maybe, do I have a sock under my bed or I don't? You don't know. Misconception, though, is to conceive something differently from how it is in reality. That's not mere ignorance or simple ignorance. Like to conceive the human as a creature that neighs. Neighing, that's the sound of the horse. If that's one's conception of a human, then he has a misconception that the human is a creature that neighs. Or the realization of the philosophers that the world is eternal. Or the realization of the body worshippers that God is a figure in the sky. All of that is misconception, delusion, and imagination. Only a body with certain limits, volume, and color can be imagined, because the imagination is based on what one can or has encountered. One only imagines what is familiar. The illusion or imagination is a direct result of the senses. The delusion does not stand as proof of the validity of a matter. So illusion, the word illusion, that's more physical. And delusion is more mental. But they're close. The condition for the validity of a matter is that the mental judgments stand as proof. So, if you went to someone's house, let's say at midnight, and you saw the light was on and his car is parked outside, but when you called, he didn't answer the phone, and when you knocked on the door, he didn't answer the door. Is that definitive evidence that he's home? It's not. He could have ran to the store. You don't know. Just because the light was on and the car's parked outside. That's delusion there. Or an illusion. The creed is not based on delusion or imagination. Rather, it is by what the sound mind, which is a witness for the religion, dictates. Imam Abul Qasim al-Ansari, the explainer of Al-Irshad by Imam al-Haramain, said, "The way to realize knowable things is evidence, not delusion. The confirmation of many a matter that cripples the imagination is still reachable by intellect." Yani, there's things that you can know by your mind, even if you can't imagine them. We say the single indivisible particle is not imaginable, while being rational based on the evidence. Which is what? Which is that everything has an edge. So, for example, my mouse that I use for my computer, it has an edge. It has edges by which it can fit inside of this house. So that means that the house then, with its own edges, has more particles. So if the house has more particles than the mouse, then that means there must be a limited number of particles in the house and in the mouse. So that means that this mouse can be split until reaching a particle that can't be split anymore. And this house could be split until reaching a particle that can't be split anymore. This particle that's so small that it can't be split anymore, we can't imagine it because it's too small for us to even see it or feel it or anything. We can't experience it by our senses so that we could even imagine it. And if you could imagine something in your imagination, you could split it. So this indivisible particle is unimaginable, but it's still confirmed by rational evidence. And likewise, the single indivisible moment of time, same thing. You have an hour. An hour is made of minutes. A minute is made of seconds. A second is made of whatever it's made of. Microseconds, I don't know what they call those. Milliseconds, until you reach a moment of time that's so small that it's indivisible. We can't imagine that. As well as eternity and everlastingness, having no beginning and having no end. You cannot imagine something without a beginning, but your mind confirms existence without a beginning. Nor can you imagine something without an end, but your mind confirms the validity of everlasting existence. As well, whoever wants to imagine the heavens and earth, for example, is only able to imagine some of it. All heavens and earth. You can't imagine all of it. Yeah, I can't even imagine this entire block. You can only imagine some of it. But your mind confirms that there is a totality. Equally is imagining the endless things known to Allah and the endless things under His power. Hence, since the imagination is removed from many existing things, how would the Eternal One, the Glorified, be sought by it? The one whom the creations do not resemble, how could He be imagined? Therefore, He, the Glorified, is not imagined in the delusions, because nothing is imagined but an image, and nothing is measured except that which is limited. The basis of the Muslim creed is not an illusion, because the illusion judges matters that are not seen according to what has been seen. Yani, that's an assumption. Judging something that hasn't been seen by what has been seen, that's an assumption. The illusion causes one to imagine things without proof. For example, the delusion or the illusion, again, illusion being more physical and delusion being more mental, concludes that Allah exists in a place. As for the sound mind, it dictates that Allah exists without a place. Some scholars said that the one who uses his intellect without using the revelation is like the one who steps into the darkness with his eyes opened. And the one who uses the revelation without using his mind is like the one who steps into the light with his eyes closed. So then the revelation is like the light, and the mind is like the eyes. You have to use the revelation and the mind. Then you will be using the light with your eyes. You will be in the light with your eyes opened. And you can't cancel either one of those. If you disregard the revelation, then you'll be in darkness even if your eyes are opened. And if you use the revelation without using your mind, then you would be in light with your eyes closed. Also, some scholars said there are few people who escape the mistake of delusion. There are few people who escape the mistake of delusion. That's a very important statement. So be amongst those few who escape the mistake of delusion. Don't assume. Rather, go by evidence and use these religious guidelines. When I say don't assume, it means you can go by these religious rules. Like when something is more likely, then the religion taught us, then we're going to go by that. When something's less likely, then we're going to not go by that. So there's an element of ignorance in there. When we say this is more likely or less likely, there's an element of ignorance in there. But the religion guided us how to act in such cases. As for the people who deny the attributes of Allah, they did not learn the proper rules for using their minds. The people who liken Allah to the creations, they don't use their minds. They just want to use the revelation. And the people who deny the attributes of Allah, they want to use their minds without using the revelation. The danger of the Mu'tazila faction lies in the fact that they claim that they rely on the mental judgment. They claim that their sayings are supported by the judgment of the mind. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdihi.